Hi, Zizaran here with another League starter for 327 Keepers of the Flame, and this is a Gladiator with Earthquake. And you can use Lacerate if you really want to. Both are exchangeable pretty easily. But either way, very nice, especially because of the bleed explosions. We have some changes this patch with bloodlines, etc. So let's go over everything. This is a really nice build. Not something I super recommend for Ubers, but I have done Ubers myself on Spectral Shield Throw, which had even less damage. That was a pain. Don't recommend that. Don't use SST as a bosser. But the Earthquake definitely can. You do get to 7 million damage. Still nothing like crazy like 20-30 million, which a lot of people want before doing bosses like that. But yeah, let's talk about it. It does look very nice. And I've played builds like this. The bleed pops. Just very, very nice. Going to be incredibly good for the Breach League. Obviously, there's going to be Breach everywhere now in every zone. So the Gratuitous Violence is something you will really love for that. If you find our builds useful for League Start, please consider subscribing and sharing the build. It helps us out a lot. Path of Building, third-party tool that we use. We use this in all our guides. It's super important to follow along, so make sure you have it. It is linked in the description as well down below. So go grab it there if you're not familiar with how it works. But we have a very easy to follow step-by-step sequence here so that at any point you are not lost on what points to take, what masteries to take, etc. Very, very easy to follow along, including respecs at some point. And you can see that we also have our ascendancies put in here as well. So pretty easy. And like here is when you swap to a one-hander. We have some notes as well. And then we do have loadouts. So these sync up skills, items, etc. Speaking of skills, they are also super easy to follow. You start out with Spectral Throw or Ground Slam. Both are completely fine, a bit of a preference thing. And then once you get level 12, you switch to Sunder. Sunder is super nice. You do that all the way until Maps, and it's just a very nice leveling experience, to be honest. And then you can swap to Earthquake. And if you really love Sunder, you can keep using that as well. Some people do. But either way, a lot of options for this build, and just really, really nice feeling build. This is definitely one of the strongest starters in the terms of it comes online so incredibly fast. And if you want to switch to another slams build like Slayer or Champion slams, etc., that is an option too. It's not like the crazy large respec. But I do think this is going to be super loved, especially because of the explosion. So yeah, very easy to follow, and as you can see here, nothing is inflated in the normal setups here. We have a second setup with Awaken Gems for even more stuff. Yeah, pretty easy to follow. And we have another setup here for Uber bossing. Here you can swap to Lacerate of Hemorrhage, because that's even more single target. But yeah, with Awaken Gems and stuff, we do cap out at 7 million. You can obviously get a little bit higher, but this is pretty decent gear. If you look at the items here as well, you can see early on, everything is just rares, very easy to follow, and Clum Sign, obviously very common. It's just life and resist gear. There's nothing like insane. This definitely works for solo self-farm. The only thing that can be harder to do, especially in like the min-max setup, is then a Resathless Coil. They are kind of rare. The way to get those would be Ancient Orbing a belt, and obviously you have the other positive outcome. You could get a Headhunter, you could get a Dydian Dawn to sell to people that are playing Ignite builds, and you could get a Mage Blood. So Ancient Orbs on a belt is never wasted anyway, but it is quite rare to get a Resathless Coil as well. Either way, that's something to think about. It's also not a super good build to use Mage Blood on, because Resathless Coil is such a large part of our damage. Part of that as well is because when you're hitting repeatedly with bleed, it's only your highest damaging instance. So if you're sometimes hitting low damaging instances, doesn't matter. It's all about like sometimes hitting a big one. For the notes, we have a lot of things that we go over here, like the 327 changes, like suppression has been nerfed, and we aren't default recommending suppression anymore. But you can if you want to be really, really tanky. You are so tanky without it that you don't need to like beeline for it. For the bloodlines, you can drop the Jagged Technique, Bleed Aggravation, and you could get the Schizophrenic Disassociation from Delirious Bloodline. But we don't fully know how that works because there's some arguments on this line. Non-cluster dual socketed in your passive skill tree have no effect. So we aren't 100% sure. Are these considered outside of your passive skill tree because they're in cluster duels? Let's say it's like a 20% chance that these duels will still work and that it's just these you were missing out on. And if so, then yeah, you could potentially use it. If not, if they are fully disabling every single non-cluster duel and that you wouldn't even be able to take these, then yeah, probably not worth it. So we'll see what ends up being the case with that, but that's pretty much the only one. The notes will explain pretty much everything. A big one is obviously some people are asking why no tincture. And the reason we aren't using a tincture is because we are a blood magic build. So the reason why this is more complicated is instead of using mana for your tincture, you are now using life. So you could die easily. So you would have to very manually be running that, and you'd have to trek over there and grab it for some points as well. So if you're feeling up to the min-maxing, a tincture would be a large amount of damage there, but it is scary to use. But pretty much everything is answered in the notes. It's a very straightforward build. It's pretty hard to mess up. And we just wanted to update it, make sure that we've changed a few things for the league to make sure that everything is up to scratch to 327. But yeah, it wasn't really affected by the notes. It is virtually the same as 326. A big unknown is grafts, but we won't know much about that until mid-league. Maybe there will be something that will somehow auto bleed for you, or auto like pop things for you. But they've also said that they aren't you. So most likely they won't pop your gratuitous violence when they're slapping things, which would be sad, but we'll see what's happening there. So the bandits for this build is kill them all. You want the extra skill point. We're pretty tight on points. However, the Pantheon changes. So for the most part, you are doing Lunaris and Ralakesh. You're getting ailment immune on gear. In the suppressed version, you're not able to get ailment immune on gear, and you're doing Soul of the Brine King for freeze immune and Ralakesh for the bleed reduction. So keep that in mind. That is how we're getting ailment immune. Oh, and another thing for this build, I do have a axe crafting video, which is about two-handed axes, but it is the same concept for one-handed axes. So pretty easy and borderline deterministic to make axes for this build. Now, another thing for this build is that we are using Comb's Sign. Obviously, you can replace this with Vermilion Rings, but they kind of do need to look like this and be incredibly good to replace it. Comb's Sign is just incredible value for being a 1 chaos item, especially because volleying them can have a lot of good outcomes. If we look at corruption outcomes here, you have attack speed's obviously okay, global fist damage is amazing, rarity is great, you have all res, you have cannot be bled, ignite, poison. Like there's some really good outcomes that will sell quite a lot. Aura effect, like a lot of these will sell for not just your build, but for other builds as well. So pick those up, corrupt them, especially the one with 15 strength. And it's great outcomes for incredibly common item. So keep that in mind as well. Either way, I hope you guys have a great league start for 327. Thank you guys so much for watching the videos. More importantly, try to die less than I do.